Welcome to Salford, just north of Manchester's city centre but still a city in its own right. Home to 234,000 people, this post-industrial city has often lived in the shadow of Manchester, but it certainly has its own history and culture. In the last 5 years, there has been permission granted to build in region of 17,000 plus new homes, and the population of the city is estimated to grow by 30,000 by 2021. In 2011, China was said to get a new skyscraper every 5 days for 3 years. The current rate of development in Salford has been described as China levels of growth. BBC's move to Salford in 2012 put the city on the map, and that has been recognised as the kickstart of the booming growth we're seeing today.
Salford is my life. I'm from Salford. Born and bred here, never moved away.
What's happening in Salford at the moment is absolutely phenomenal.
In 20 years, Salford will be a beautiful, vibrant city, and we ask, well, who the hell for? Who's this great, wonderful city for?
But what does this mean for your average Salfordian? With change comes sacrifice, and is it possible that the old community are being sacrificed to create a new, vibrant city, which will help supplement the economic growth of Greater Manchester? Derek Antrobus is responsible for planning the future of Salford and has been a Labour councillor since 1979. He spoke with us about the development surge within inner city Salford.
Manchester has transformed itself from an industrial city into a postmodern city, and what we're finding is that Salford, which after the war suffered a dramatic loss of population, left behind a lot of vacant, derelict sites where businesses and industry were. Suddenly we've now got the space to accommodate the new growth that's happening at the core of the conurbation, and so we're getting the planning applications in to meet the growth aspirations for the whole of Greater Manchester in many respects.
Jean Seddon is a long-term Salford resident. Born and raised in Weast, an area of Salford backing onto a lot of the old industry and now separated by the M602 motorway.
And this is the area I grew up in. It was a vibrant area, you had no need to get on the bus to go shopping, everything was on your doorstep. White Goods was a bus ride away, but we had everything else, post office, banks, doctors, dentists, all the shops you needed. We were a community. It's not that now.
Colin Johnson is a Salfordian through and through. He spoke to us on how the area he grew up in has changed beyond recognition.
It's a lot of the culture, the heritage is like the Black Horse is going to come down. That's one of the last remaining trademarks of Salford. You know, you've got the pubs down there, like I mentioned. Yeah, Salford's changing, and it's not getting for the better.
The Salford Star is a community magazine founded by locals and community activists 10 years ago. In recent issues and on their online site, they've posted lots of articles expressing the problems faced by the people of Salford since the start of the large regeneration.
We are community journalists. We live here. Our kids are being brought up here. We don't just tip our toe into the story and get out for a bit of sensationalism and to get readers. We actually follow the stories through. Some of the stories have been going 10 years. We don't drop it. We try and give these people a voice. That's why it was set up. That was the original idea of it.
Graham Cooper is a youth worker in Salford. He took us to an estate where residents have been living in limbo for 10 years due to failed regeneration plans.
And my concern is that it's all about bricks and mortar. It's not about the people who live in these areas. So I've got massive concerns about it, actually. I don't think regeneration is what it is. As you can see around here, I call this degeneration. To regenerate, you've got to degenerate. And that's what they've been doing now around here for 15 years. Broken promises, people left behind, and communities afflicted by lack of investment, lack of money, and lack of what's going on in the future. They can't plan or anything else. There are people on these estates who have not been able to decorate their houses now for something like 9 or 10 years. That's tragic.
Although regeneration plans within the city have been being proposed for over 10 years. Ever since the move of the BBC to Salford and the redevelopment of Salford Quays in 2012, what was once Salford Docks is starting to become a prime area for development.
I think that Salford Quays, which actually started to develop in the 1980s, has been an important part of that. It was very much a pioneering piece of regeneration, and throughout the whole of Europe it's respected as one of the major early regenerations for a post-industrial city. It started to change the image of Salford, so people were no longer concerned about investing in the city.
Stephen explained to me how the increase in new residents had impacted neighbouring area also.
Basically what you do is if you've got a community that's got child poverty, that's got income poverty, that's got unemployment, that's got social problems and whatever, and you put a load of young professionals in there, then all of a sudden the figures start balancing themselves out. So Oddsall's suddenly climbed 6 places in the multiple deprivation indices, and the council's kind of crowing about it. It's like, well, you haven't solved the problems, because we spoke to the people there. You haven't solved any of the problems. In fact, the problems have probably got worse, but what you've done is you've diluted them.
When we started on the Quays, one of our prime objectives was how do we make sure that it provides employment for people in Ordsall. So we made sure that with the developers we had local labour agreements, so they took on apprentices from Ordsall. With the new businesses coming in, we worked with the college to make sure that people were trained in the areas that the businesses were taking on recruits. But we also wanted to make sure that the community were involved. So little things like making sure that the waters were available. It was Ordsall Angling Club which took over the fishing rights to the waters in Salford Quays. It was the Ordsall Community Arts Group that decided all the artwork and was involved in the interpretation of the history of Salford Quays.
But despite the council's efforts, BBC were criticised in 2012 when it turned out that only 26 new jobs had been created for locals out of 680 at their new offices. Jean can also recall another time when development in Salford has failed to benefit residents in the ways that were intended, when in the 1980s Margaret Thatcher declared Salford an enterprise zone.
A public meeting was called, a very angry public meeting, in 3 areas. We came together as a group to fight some of the proposals, well, a lot of the proposals of the enterprise zone, and that's how DOJAG was formed, East Docks and Ordsall Joint Action Group. A lot of the things we said, it wouldn't be jobs for manual workers, it'd be white collar workers or high tech workers, as we saw then. Through that, I was able to do a big survey of the Salford Enterprise Zone and just finding out how many jobs were created in the zone. Not just for Salford people, but how many jobs created altogether. There wasn't even a third of Salford people employed.
To spread all our own communities far and wide and got all different people in. We don't get to know one another now. It's a shame, really. Really is a shame. Salford I knew and loved his history. Salford will never die. No.
Well, in 5 years, I hope that some of the big regeneration projects that we've started will be completed. I hope that the quality of the environment will be a lot better than it is now. And I hope that the image of the city will be much better. We've got Media City, which has been of immense value in changing the image of Salford from a dirty old town to something more about the future.
The people of Salford, you've got the people of Salford right on the bottom getting the brunt of it. Then you've got the councillors who are absolutely powerless, and they're supposed to represent these people. The future for Salford's looking pretty bleak, to be quite honest, because it won't be dictated by the people who live here.
I worry for the future of the kids in the area, mainly because of the schooling. There used to be along the stretch of road that is Eccles New Road, going from Cross Lane to here. There was 4 primary schools at one time. Now there's 1. The housing, yes, it all disappeared with the slum development, but all the new housing, it's all back. Blocks that are built now, all the flats, school numbers have gone up.
The reality is there needs to be investment in the communities that the regeneration is going on. We can't leave these people behind. You'll have small places, real bad indicators of poverty, lack of aspirations, people with real no hope, surrounded by £250,000 houses. I mean, it's quite ironic, really, when you look at it like that. That people then have to look at what you could have had. I feel like Salford's going to be a really good place to live in time to come. But only if we learn from mistakes from the past, and not just from Salford, but places like London, places like Liverpool. At the end of the day, that it's not about the bricks and mortar; it's about the people who live in them. So we need to stop dismantling our communities and concentrating on, in some respects, investing in them and educating them.